Once you accept it all, nothing can control you anymore. You've thought control was your ally, your safety net, your armor. Tightly braced against uncertainty, you believed the world owed you clarity, structure, perfection. But every moment of control carved a deeper edge into your soul. The tighter you gripped, the more life slipped. The more rigid your plan, the more fragile your peace. Because control isn't the bastion of power. It's the prison of fear. Carl Jung taught that the ego fears dissolution, but the soul demands it. You plastered over your wounds with discipline, performance, structure, because you thought certainty would save you. It didn't. It fractured you further. That's psyphoria, when your system collapses not from chaos, but from the noise you made around it. The moment you stop resisting, stop pretending, stop micromanaging, stop strategizing for outcomes, is the moment you remember who you are beneath the armor. Acceptance isn't surrender. It's awareness. It's realizing that belief doesn't need proof. Clarity doesn't need a plan. Purpose doesn't need pressure. Discipline doesn't need disdain for rest. Action doesn't need explanation. Gratitude doesn't need gain. Adaptability doesn't need anxiety. Resilience doesn't need resistance. Learning doesn't need labels. Each contradiction softly dissolves in acceptance. Resistance fractures your narrative control, demands perfection. But acceptance roots you in reality, not a tailored world where everything fits your plan, but a raw, real world you can inhabit without losing yourself. When you accept that pain is part of the map, loss part of the journey, endings part of becoming, the inner war stops. Exhaustion lifts. The inner ticker that paced your life with demands falls quiet. You stop asking, how do I fix it? And whisper, what am I learning? What am I releasing? Eventually you see, everything you once resisted held your next emergence. Choices that once triggered shame become surrender points for freedom. Boundaries that once felt exclusion become declarations of alignment. Grief that used to overwhelm now becomes initiation into empathy. Loss becomes passage, not punishment. Acceptance is not passive. It's sovereignty, the present acceptance of the present conditions of your soul. You walk out of toxic cycles, not out of escape, but clarity. You stop racing to belong when you feel belonging in your bones. You stop silencing parts of your truth just to avoid discomfort. You stop controlling love, silence, success, unlocking the space for them to arrive at your frequency. Once you accept the totality, your strengths, your wounds, your stories, your soft spots, no one can compel you to shrink again. Your peace becomes your boundary. Your flow becomes your force. You don't just survive storms, you stand unshakable in their eye. You don't compensate for chaos, you calibrate through clarity. And in that sovereign clarity, magic begins. Doors stop resisting. Conversations stop draining. People who are misaligned simply recede. Energy aligns, frequency matches. Grace flows without hustle. Love arrives, not starred, not spotlighted, but peacefully inevitable. Then life stops trying to prove you. It begins to mirror you. Your conviction becomes contagious. Your calm becomes contagious. Your clarity becomes catalytic. You stop fighting the old world. You embody the new one, not from noise, but from knowing. Because now, no story survives your depth. No drama finds your center. No fear breaches your peace. Because you understand that acceptance not only softens the flow, it becomes the flow. And once you accept it all, nothing outside you has the power to control you anymore. And once you accept it all, not just the light, but every shadow, every scar, every unchosen past, nothing outside you can bend your soul again. You no longer need to manage outcomes to feel safe. You no longer need to demand explanations to feel valid. You no longer need approval to feel worthy. You are no longer moved by circumstance. You are moved by living in truth. You walk into crowds and your presence says things that words could never catch. You stand in storms and your calm doesn't crack. You live in uncertainty and your clarity never wavers. Because control never made you wise. Acceptance did. You didn't earn your power through force. You reclaimed it through forgiveness of others, of outcomes, of parts of yourself you left behind. Every time you let go of the shame, the struggle, the story that said you needed to earn existence, you pull yourself back home. And home is no longer something outside you. It's you, complete, clean, connected. Now life arrives differently, not with demands, but with synchronicities. Doors open, conversations clarify, opportunities align, not because you chased them, but because you became them. This is your fiercely quiet agency. This is the power of someone who doesn't cling to identity or ideology. This is the shift from survival to sovereignty, from tension to truth, from friction to flow. Where once you begged for peace, now you are peace. And from this foundation, your gratitude becomes infinite. Your action becomes art. Your presence becomes prophecy. You become a magnet not for attention, but for alignment. Not for consent, but for energy. Not for permission, but for purpose. Because the moment you stopped resisting, you began to live fully, here, now, and in that life, nothing can control you again, because you are everything. Stillness, strength, sanctuary, unshakably free. Once you accepted all, not just the victories, but every fracture, every failure, every scar, you step into a sovereign space no one else can occupy. Because acceptance doesn't surrender your power, it reclaims it. You stop negotiating your worth with outcomes. You stop measuring yourself by reactions. You stop performing identity based on fear-based expectations. The masks fall. The wounds are welcomed. The shadows bow, not in defeat, but in alignment. Acceptance doesn't make you passive. It liberates you. It stops the internal war. You don't brace against the river, you become the water. You don't fix the current, you flow through it. And in that flow, there's no room for force. Force fractures, flow fortifies. You walk into rooms and your energy speaks what words can't. You endure storms without stagnating. You live in uncertainty with unwavering clarity because you no longer resist what island. You respond from resonance, not reaction. You're no longer orchestrating your story, you are the story. Not through control, but through acceptance of every element that shaped you. Your power isn't produced by dismissal, but by devotion. Devotion to truth, to inner wholeness, to the rhythm of your deepest becoming. Where once you begged for approval, now you stand rooted in your own worth. Where once you chased peace, you now are it. Not because the world changed, but because your lens did. Your gratitude is divine. Your discipline is devotion. Your presence is sacred. Your life stops being a scramble and finally becomes the masterpiece you always were meant to live inside. Acceptance is not the end of the journey, it's the ultimate transformation. From survival to sovereignty, from tension to truth, from denial to embodiment. Once you accept it all, nothing outside can control you anymore. Saturday, the 1st of August 2025. And in this acceptance, this deep, unshakable realignment, you become a frequency the world can no longer ignore. Not because you're loud, but because you are real, you no longer react. You respond, not from fear, but from clarity. Not to impress, but to express. Not to belong, but because you already do. Because you are sovereign in your soul. Now, your no is free of apology. Your yes is full of truth. Your silence is louder than any attempt to prove. And your presence, it's not available to noise, only to resonance. Because you have become a sanctuary, a living threshold, a still point in the spinning world. And in that stillness, You're no longer chased by chaos. You command the current around you. No manipulation, no drama, just peace, fierce, fluid, unassailable. And as you move forward, may every loss resolve into wisdom, every failure refine your frequency, every end become initiation, every waiting be sanctified. Because you've stopped begging for peace, and in doing so, you became it. You became the calm beneath the storm, the gravity that steadies the spinning world, the anchor that chaos can't uproot, the presence that changes the room without trying. Once you accept it all, nothing outside can control you anymore. Because now you answer to yourself, you flow from your truth, you are guided by your alignment, and nothing and no one can take that from you because you've already become it. You are peace, you are power, you are sovereign, and you are free. And from that place of total acceptance where you've welcomed light and shadow, failure and triumph, you become a force that the world must adjust to, not by force, but by truth. You no longer shrink to soothe insecurity. You no longer perform to earn belonging. You no longer justify your worth to those committed to misunderstanding it. Now, your no stands unbroken, rooted in clarity, not fear. Your yes radiates alignment, intuitive, unwavering, precise. Your stillness speaks louder than noise ever could, because you have become the sanctuary others sense before you even speak. You are not carried by events. You carry unshakable presence. You don't chase peace. You are peace. And your being, it becomes your boundary, your power, your liberation. You accept your entire past, not to excuse it, but to extract the lesson and let go. You honor pain, not to dwell in it, but to let it refine your resonance. You let every failure, departure, and breakdown fall away, not to erase it, but to realign you with everything that truly belongs. Because real power isn't forged in struggle. It's awakened in acceptance. Asterisk. And now your life is no longer a sequence of approvals to chase. It's a story of return. Return to your essence, to your sovereignty, to your unbreakable center. Once you accept it all, nothing can control you anymore. Not others, not outcomes, not circumstances. Only yourself, aligned, anchored, awake, free. You don't need the world to slow down or support you. You only need to stop resisting what already island. You only need to live from what you already know to be true. Your worth is inherent, not earned. Your peace is primal, not passive. Your power is presence, not performance. Your life is sovereign, and that sovereignty, it cannot be stolen. It cannot be forced. It cannot falter. Once you accept it all, it's yours. Completely, unapologetically, finally, free. And now, your entire life begins to bloom in alignment, deeply rooted in the power of acceptance. No longer resisting the storms, no longer craving what's outside. You stand as the stillness through which all storms move. Because once you accept it all, light and shadow, triumph and failure, loss and grace, you become unchallengeable. Your soul is no longer bargaining. Your essence no longer demande validation. You don't chase peace, you are peace. That presence you've nurtured isn't fragile. It's fertile, fierce, unfaltering. When the world demands more, you whisper truth. When people expect tears, you offer rest. When life tries to shake your worth, you stand. Because you've made peace your foundation, not a fleeting moment you beg for. Your boundaries are sacred. Your yes intuitive. Your no clean. Your silence electric. You aren't changing to fit comfort. You are changing the energy around comfort. This is the sovereignty you reclaimed, not through effort, but through acceptance. Acceptance of who you are, with all your scars, all your power, all your becoming. And nothing outside can bend your spirit anymore. Because now, you answer to you. You move with alignment. You lead from presence. You become the peace, the anchor, the unshakable force inside the storm. This is not the end. It is life lived without resistance. It is a soul released, finally whole, finally free, finally at home within itself. Once you accept everything, your shame, your victory, your solitude, your scars, you step into a space no one can invade. That space is your sovereignty. Here, every part of you is recognized, and nothing outside can hold power over you. Control slips away. Approval fades in importance. Validation becomes internal. You no longer dance for applause. You just stand, clear, still, radiant. Your no becomes sacred. Your yes becomes intuitive. Silence becomes presence. People feel you before you speak. Choices no longer drain, they center. Your presence is a threshold, and nothing outside you can command entry. Because you sacrificed the performance for truth, you earned unshakable peace. You didn't earn it with hustle. You reclaimed it through surrender. And now, with every exhale, every heartbeat, you meet life not as conflict but as creation. No longer compelled by circumstance, you are compelled by essence. You act from alignment, not reaction. You love from fullness, not fear. You move from sovereignty, not survival. And with each step you broadcast something the world cannot ignore. You are peace. You are power. You are presence. Once you accept it all, nothing can control you anymore, because now you are everything you were always searching for. You are free. And freedom, once found through full acceptance, no longer needs to shout. It's simply island. It breathes through you, moves in how you walk, speaks in your silence, shines in the way you no longer overextend, overexplain, or overgive to stay significant. You don't chase energy. You attract with clarity. You don't prove your worth. You radiate it. You don't guard your heart with suspicion. You protect it with standards. Your boundaries are no longer defenses, they are expressions of your truth. They don't block love, they purify it. Because when you've accepted all of yourself, you don't fear rejection. You no longer interpret silence as abandonment. You no longer interpret criticism as threat. You no longer interpret leaving as loss. You know what stays is aligned. What leaves is not yours to carry. And what breaks is only making space for something more real. You stop resisting the natural law of life, the death and rebirth of self, identity, relationships, dreams. Because now you are not addicted to permanence. You are devoted to presence. You are not afraid of endings. You are a student of becoming. And in that becoming, everything falls away. Everything real rises. Because when nothing can control you, everything aligns with you. Not because you forced it, but because you finally remembered. You were never meant to grip life. You were meant to flow with it. And in that flow, you return to what is holy. And here it is what remains when your ego dissolves and your soul accepts everything. You, completely whole, graced with calm that no chaos can stain. Rooted in truth that no temporary role can unseat. Your powerful place in the storm found not through striving, but through surrender. Because once you completely accept your story, light and dark, triumph and tragedy, nothing in the external world can control your center anymore. You don't chase. You don't fight. You simply flow aligned, awake, sovereign. Your yes resonates from the depth of your clarity. Your no echoes from the strength of your boundaries. Your silence holds more weight than drama ever could. You became peace not by pursuing it, but by finally being receptive enough to let it rise through you. Nothing and no one can shake you now. You are presence. You are power. You are free. And that freedom, it doesn't beg. It doesn't explain. It just island. Because now, even when the world trembles around you, your inner axis holds firm. You are no longer bound by the noise of approval or the fear of loss. You don't build your identity from borrowed beliefs. You don't shape your peace to fit into others' expectations. You are no longer trying to escape your shadow, you are walking with it. What once triggered you now teaches you. What once frightened you now frees you. What once felt like failure now fuels your transformation. You have stopped bargaining with life, stopped wrestling with outcomes, stopped asking, why me? And started declaring, through me. You are not the victim of your past, you are the alchemist of it. You don't need perfect conditions to show up as your whole self. You show up anyway. You don't need everyone to understand you, you only need to understand yourself. This is the secret they never taught you. That power comes not from possession, but from presence. That peace isn't given, it's claimed. That freedom isn't found out there, it's remembered within. And now, with your soul unclenched and your essence unfiltered, you move through the world like a quiet revolution. You are no longer seeking to become, you are now simply being. And in that being, you are ungovernable by fear, untouchable by manipulation, unmoved by noise. Because you've accepted it all, and what is fully accepted can never again be used to control you. This is the deepest kind of power, and it has always been yours. And here's the final truth. When you truly accept everything, light and shadow, triumph and trauma, the power to control slips away. But in its place stands something deeper. Your presence, that unshakable inner axis, the sovereign calm beneath chaos. Your yes grounded in integrity. Your no delivered without apology. Your silence louder than defense. Because once you accept it all, nothing outside can control you anymore. You are not consumed by praise or punishment, not defined by need or fear. You are not just surviving your story, you transcend it. You are the space where everything finds rest. The resonance that outlasts noise. The quiet revolution that doesn't shout, it sings. Not because you conquered life, but because you surrendered to truth. And in that surrender, you didn't lose. You arrived, whole, still, unstoppable, a living proof. When you stop fighting against all that you are, you begin to live as who you were always meant to be. And in this final emergence where acceptance has become your heartbeat, your walk, your witness, you understand why you were broken open. Not to be diminished, but to become indivisible. You no longer cling to certainty. You carry trust. You no longer edit your essence to be digestible. You embody it fully. You no longer beg life for permission. You command it through your very alignment. Because you've stopped resisting the flow, and in that surrender, you became the current. Every scar you try to cover now glows with holy fire. Every silence you once feared now sings with clarity. Every ending you cursed became your elevation. And every attempt to control, a necessary lesson that taught you the ultimate truth, that what is truly yours can never be forced. That peace was never about protecting yourself from life. It was about meeting life, unmasked, and finally saying, yes, all of it. The pain, the power, the process, the paradox. You accepted it all, and in doing so, you became all. No longer controlled, no longer fractured, no longer waiting, just walking as truth, as stillness, as freedom, as you. Because once you've accepted all of who you are, your light, your brokenness, your shadows, your truth, you step into a power that no force can break. You are no longer driven by circumstances. You are driven by presence, stillness beneath storms, clarity within chaos, a yes grounded in truth, a no delivered without hesitation, silence that speaks volumes. You shed control not in defeat but in devotion, devotion to your soul's frequency, devotion to your own becoming, devotion to peace as your identity, not a fleeting reward. And from this grounded truth, life finally begins to mirror what you hold. Doors open with ease. Relationships breathe, no longer suffocating. Projects unfold without force. You're no longer performing. You are becoming the peace, the strength, the sanctuary, not by volume, but by virtue of your still unapologetic grace. Once you truly accept it all, nothing, not people, not plans, not pain, can control you again. Because now you are free not in theory, but in every deeply breathed moment of truth lived from within. And in that truth, you no longer walk through life as if it owes you something. You walk through life as if you are the offering. Not because you're trying to impress, but because you finally understand. Your presence is the gift. Your peace is the rebellion. Your clarity is the revolution. And when you live from that place rooted, aware, whole, there is nothing left to fix, nothing left to prove, nothing left to force, because you have finally done the only thing that ever mattered. You have come home to yourself. And that is the moment the war ends. Not out there, but in here, inside the temple of your own being, inside the stillness you used to run from, inside the softness you once mistook for weakness. Now you know. This softness is your strength. This silence is your song. This surrender is your sovereignty. And no one, not fear, not judgment, not the world's chaos, can ever take that from you, because it was never given by them. It was claimed by you through fire, through fracture, through the radical act of saying, I accept it all. And now that you've accepted it all, you are finally free to live, not as a version, not as a mask, not as a reaction, but as the original, unrepeatable truth that you are. So now no more bargaining, no more performing, no more pretending you are less than the storm you survived. You don't need their permission. You don't need their applause. You don't even need their understanding. Because once you accept everything, the pain, the brilliance, the silence, the chaos, you no longer need to be anything other than you. The full spectrum, the whole symphony. You are no longer afraid of the darkness, because you are the light that walks through it. You are no longer shaken by endings, because you have become the beginning. You no longer wait to be chosen, because now you choose yourself. And in that choice, you don't just find peace. You become it. You don't just find strength. You radiate it. You don't just find your path. You are the path. Nothing controls you anymore, because everything has been accepted. And everything accepted becomes power. The real kind. The kind that doesn't dominate. It liberates. So go. Live. Love. Lead. Not from force, but from the fullness of the one truth no one can take from you. You are whole. You are here. And you are finally free.